Welcome to this edition of Dufferin Life. I'm your host, Teena Avery. Thank you so much for tuning in. So when people think of organic food and waste, and you don't really know what's happening with it, and you think you know because people are composting, and then maybe you don't know, and maybe I don't know, but there's some interesting facts that you're going to learn today. Joining me today, we have Jocelyn. She is from Waste Not Farms. Thank you so much for joining me.
Thanks for having me, Teena.
So I want to talk a little bit about your background before we get into the nitty-gritty of all these things that everybody needs to know that I kind of hinted around to. So let's talk a little bit about how this all started.
Sure. Well, so I am a professional worm farmer, and my worms, they eat food waste and they poop out the best all-natural plant food that Mother Nature can make. And so what we do is we work with a variety of businesses. We repurpose things like spent brewery grains from a brewery, or coffee grounds, for example, from Mocha Berry in Orangeville, food waste from Mrs. Mitchell's restaurant, and we feed that to the worms, and after a couple of months we're able to harvest it. We move the worms to the next batch. They're the workers.
Okay.
So they're constantly eating and pooping, pretty much. And
it's a rough life.
They're well looked after, and then we bag up the product as Jocelyn Soil Booster, a line of all natural soils and plant foods.
Okay, so how did you? Because honestly, I would be like worms, food, poop, not getting it. But so how did it all start?
I have to admit, I have always been a bit of a garbage geek, you could say, and I attribute that to my parents, who in grade 5 for Halloween, they sent me dressed up as a blue box. It was a really big hit, and I think it impacted my career choices. I ultimately went into waste management, and I was lucky enough to work at a really big waste management company, who shall remain nameless. And unfortunately, I found out pretty much on day one that all the food waste that was going to compost was in fact going to landfill.
Oh, okay.
And this turned out was really quite common in the industry, and I was lucky enough to have had worms. I'd had some worms in my backyard composter. I saw how quickly they turned food waste into soil, and so I said, why aren't we doing this on a commercial level? Why aren't we using worms to turn nutrients that are in food waste back into nutrients that we need in soil? So this was about 10 years ago. I started out and set out to do that.
Well, I'm just saying, it sounds crazy to me. Because obviously, I mean, you were in the mindset, so these things would happen, and you noticed what the worms were doing. I prefer not to notice what the worms are doing, but obviously they're doing some really good stuff. So let's talk about the worms. Are there specific types of worms? So
we use a traditional composting worm called a red wiggler.
Okay.
And this is a type of manure worm. It is a tropical worm. So our worms, they live in a big indoor barn.
Okay.
Below about 10 degrees Celsius, they stop working. So we constantly want to keep them working. All worms, though, have this purpose. Some people call them Mother Nature's intestines.
Okay.
And they essentially evolved with plants, with soil, to recycle the material on the forest floor back into soil. So we're essentially simply using their existing services for our own purposes.
That's extremely interesting. So worms are not that big, or we can talk about I don't know how big your the red wigglers are, but we're gonna find out. But I mean, how in order to produce something commercially, how many worms does one need?
So I have in the ballpark of about 3 million worms.
Wow.
However, we really are a demonstration scale facility. We're a pilot scale facility. We're proving that this kind of biotechnology works. This is a type of vertical agriculture. So my worms, they live in big stacked bins, and it's pretty low tech. They're doing all the hard work. But ultimately, what's amazing is that we are able to provide this truly beneficial environmental service so that folks can be getting off the chemicals, stopping using the fertilizers that are hurting soil and hurting us, and switch over to working with Mother Nature, working with natural biology, and improving the quality of our ecosystems.
Okay, so let's talk about that. I mean, that's obviously a very big benefit in itself, but let's talk about the benefits of using worm poop for our soil.
Sure, so what we're talking about on a holistic level is a type of growing called regenerative growing, regenerative agriculture, and we're hearing more about this these days. Ultimately, what that means is that we're working with soil biology. So we're looking after our microbes, and I'm talking about things like bacteria and fungi and amoebas, protozoas, all those little microorganisms that up until about 20 or 30 years ago, we didn't even know they were there.
Right.
So this is all really new, exciting science. We're starting to appreciate that the microbes in soil, I like them, I often talk about them like Uber Eats delivery.
Okay.
Or your pizza delivery boy. And what that means is that plants will actually talk to the microbes. They have a special language by which they're able to communicate with the microbes. And they will ask for the nutrients they need. And so long as there's a diverse selection of this microbiology ready, it will go out further than the roots would ever reach. It'll find the nutrients or manufacture them and bring them back and hand it over to the plant.
Okay.
So the plant can then use it to grow bigger and stronger. In exchange, the plant hands the microbes a molecule of sugar or glucose, a carbohydrate. And this is what the microbe wants to grow healthier and stronger. So what's happening is as the plant grows bigger, it's feeding the microbes, which in turns are feeding the plants. It's a positive feedback cycle. Together they're getting stronger every year. And that's what regenerative growing is about, is that it's improving year after year the quality of the soil, the quality and the health of the plants, versus conventional chemical agriculture, which deteriorates the quality year after year.
Okay. Well, that was a lot of scientific knowledge that I did not have, and now you get to know all of that as well. So now we're going back to the basics here. So, I mean, you were talking about what you're feeding the worms. Is that something that needs to be monitored? Like exactly what they're eating? Like they just can't eat any organic food, can they? Or?
Well, believe it or not, they can eat anything that was living at one time. So any kind of plant or animal is consumable by the worm. Some things take longer than others. So things like avocado pits or the shell or the husk of a seed or pistachio, for example. So those things we have to often put through the cycle a few times. We also have to be very careful, and anybody that's a composter will be familiar with this. Balancing your carbons and your nitrogens, or your browns and your greens, is important for the worms. And things like moisture level and aeration, or keeping lots of oxygen, is also critical.
So, I mean, you had said earlier that it was very simplistic kind of setup, but it doesn't sound as simplistic when you're actually talking about it. There's a lot of things to kind of monitor when you're doing this.
Yeah, well, you know, the worms are like any livestock. They do need monitoring, they do need care. You have to adjust based on outdoor temperatures, other factors, but at the end of the day, you know, they're the ones doing the heavy lifting, and as long as they're happy, then they're doing their job, and I'm able to do mine.
Well, that's perfect. So, okay, just out of curiosity, I don't know if you know that, but what is an average lifespan of a worm?
So a worm lives anywhere from about 3 to 5 years. And most folks are perhaps familiar that worms are hermaphrodites, so they do have both male and female sex organs. However, they do have to exchange genetic fluid with another worm to reproduce.
Okay.
And when that happens, they will both, you know that necklace that worms wear, like in a worm cartoon?
Yeah.
So that's actually their reproductive organ.
Okay.
And after they've exchanged material, both worms, that necklace will slide off their head into a cocoon, and a couple of weeks later there'll be 3 to 7 baby worms that come out of that. So they reproduce very quickly because both parents are having babies.
Okay. Well, that's something. Wouldn't it be nice? You can have all your kids efficiently, absolutely. Just a little closer together if we could both all do that. But, I mean, good for the worms. That's wonderful. So let's talk about some of the products that are made from that. And I know you've brought some samples for me, and we're going to talk, I think, a little bit about the probiotics for plants.
Do you do much gardening at home?
I'm not, here's where the truth comes out.
Oh, I shouldn't have asked that.
No, it's okay. This is where the truth comes out. I'm not much, I enjoy what the garden looks like. I enjoy picking the things that go in the garden. I'm not much of a gardener. I've learned, it took me about 10 years of owning my own home before I realized I'm just not getting into this. But I do love being out there and having somebody else garden for me.
Well, and now we're starting to appreciate how beneficial it is for our mental health, for our physical health, to be outdoors in greenery, even having indoor plants. So, you know, if you're worried, this can make you a really good gardener. This is the trick, let me tell you. It turns brown thumbs green. And you know what it is? It's unlike chemicals where you're constantly having to add more and more and figure out, you know, is this the right type? What's the NPK? This is leaving all that guesswork to Mother Nature. Let Mother Nature do what she does best. What this product is really just full of biology, full of those microbes. So it looks like soil.
Okay. Oh, yeah, don't you worry.
Oh, sorry. It smells like soil.
Okay, it does.
Yeah, but so it is worm manure, and what's powerful about it is all those microbes that were in the worm's digestive system are deposited on the worm manure, and those are the same microbes that need to be in soil for plants to really thrive and be healthy.
Okay.
And so you just add a handful, you sprinkle it on top of the soil, water well, and those microbes immediately go to work, they talk to the plant, they find out what the plant needs, and then they deliver the nutrients on demand. So it makes it a lot easier to be a good grower.
Well, see, that would be good for me, because even my plants on the inside, listen, I was very proud I kept something alive all through the winter that needed to be inside and is now outside. I'm just like, this is awesome, because normally...
High five for that. It's nicely done.
This is normally me going, oh no, I just don't seem to be that person. Like it just... But obviously,
that's going to change.
Products like that can help. So let's talk about potting soil and the benefits of potting soil.
So this is a really special potting soil. I'm so excited and proud of this product. It is Canada's first peat-free living potting soil.
Okay.
So there's two really important cool things there. The first is that it is a living potting soil, which means it has all that biology in it already.
Okay.
This is unlike most potting soils that are dead dirt. They don't have any of the microbes to feed the plant, so you're required to constantly add the chemical fertilizers.
Okay.
This is the opposite. This has everything you need, everything your plant's going to last all season. It's going to be working with the biology the way it's supposed to. The other cool thing about this product is it's peat-free.
Okay.
How much do you know about our
peat
law?
No. Yeah.
Okay. You don't know anything about peatlands. Okay. So peatland, peat bogs are incredibly important ecosystems. They're unique because they're sort of half water and half land.
Okay.
It's sort of like a marsh, and it's. I won't get into the science. I know we don't have too much time, but what's critical to understand is they hold a lot of carbon. So right now, they're really helping us fight the climate crisis.
Okay.
And they also help adjust water levels. So, we're seeing these storms that are shorter but more intense, right? These rainstorms. Peat bogs are able to help us with those kinds of issues.
That's amazing. I wish we had more time. Jocelyn, we're going to have you back so we can learn a little bit more.
I'd love to.
But thank you so much for coming on the show.
Thank you, and good luck with your plants.
Thank you. And don't you go anywhere. We'll be right back.